Big part of the Etsy game is having a better photo than the next guy,
Ah,
because you got to get them in the door. You can't sell something if they don't enter your listing. So I found by having, I'll do research, and I don't even care what the product price is or what the product exactly is of the competitor. I want to see how it's photographed and how I can make that my photograph more appealing than their photograph.
hey everybody, I'm Jonathan, maker, inventor, designer, and Autodesker. Welcome to ShopTalk, the podcast series where we talk to makers, inventors, and designers from shop to shop. Today, we're speaking with Patrick Gensel from Pine and Print. Patrick has built a dream shop full of every digital fabrication tool you can get your hands on. He uses that shop to make bespoke consumer products that he sells online, but he's also super generous with his knowledge, sharing all kinds of information on social media channels. So stick with us. Okay, Patrick, thanks for coming, man. How's it going?
Great. How are you?
Doing good. We wanted to talk to you because you're in our creators program. You know, we noticed your work, and the more I dig in, the more I notice different kinds of things you're doing. Looks like you've got a lot of different plates spinning.
Yeah, I wear a lot of hats.
Yeah, love it. Cool. So could you tell us, just give us your backstory? How did you get into this stuff in the first place?
All right, so I've been a maker my entire life. Ever since I was a little kid, I remember tinkering with motors and electronics. I took my Nintendo apart when I was like 6 and put it back together, and it magically still worked. My dad had a wood shop growing up. Excuse me. My dad had a wood shop growing up, so I was always out there with him, and just kind of sparked that interest in making very early on. And then fast forward to 6, 7 years ago, I bought my first 3D printer, and that kind of sparked my whole foray into the world of digital fabrication and 3D modeling, 3D design. The 3D printer then morphed into me getting a laser cutter, then that morphed into me getting a CNC, and here we are now. Doing content in the space of making. I've got multiple Etsy shops. I probably spend more time making than I probably should, but it's I love doing it.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing that you've been able to take a hobby and turn it into a business. We get a lot of stories like that. And I know our audience is going to be interested in that for sure. But I'm curious about, so you got into this as a hobby, right? You mentioned
Mhm.
earlier when we were talking that you were in video production, like that was kind of your formal education and your kind of day job. Can you tell us about that transition from this is something I do evenings and weekends to maybe this is a viable business?
Yeah, prior to doing this stuff full time, I was wearing two hats as an IT manager and a video production guy for a company locally. And then I had done that for years. And then during the beginning of the pandemic, my situation changed there, and I was having my first child. And with the craziness of that, I ended up getting let go due to some just some changes in the way they were structuring their company. So I just decided I'm going headfirst into this whole maker as a career thing, and I haven't looked back. I'll tell you for sure though, the first couple of years I'd wake up in a panic going, where's the money coming from? But that kind of goes away as you get more used to figuring out where to bring the money from and having multiple income streams. So that was my transition was kind of, my hand was forced, but with my personality, that was probably the best way for it to happen, because I would have just kept kicking the ball down the field every year. So having that lifestyle change forced on me definitely helped put me where I am.
That's an inspiring story, man. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that, would be really discouraged by being laid off, by especially during the lockdowns. I mean, it must have been
Hmm.
really scary to lose your job at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, to sort of take that and say, and I'm going to use this as an opportunity. That's a great attitude, man. I'm really glad that worked out for you.
Yeah, fortunately, this was always my long-term plan. So we had a little money stashed away, which helped ease the blow. But yeah, it was definitely scary because I didn't know what the world was going to do from one minute to the next. So
Yeah.
I just kept making, and fortunately, Etsy was a really great source of income when people were at home with nothing to do and just money to spend. So,
Yep.
and I was
Yeah.
able to
Household
keep that going.
products. household products did really well during the lockdowns.
Yeah.
That was sort of a yeah, that's a really good time to be poised for that. That's cool. So what was your first product that really took off? What was the first thing you saw people wanting where you said, huh, maybe I can make this work?
So the very first thing was a magnet I designed in the style of the battle menu from the old like RPG games from the 90s, like Super Nintendo, Final Fantasy, that kind of stuff. I designed a battle menu that said attack, item, magic, summon, something like that. And I just shared it in the Final Fantasy subreddit and said, hey, look at this cool thing I made. And everybody was super interested in it. So I'm like, huh, maybe I should throw this on Etsy. And that thing really kind of got the algorithm juice going for me in my Etsy shop. And then from there, I moved on to making trays for note cards. So you put a 3x5 card in it, pull it out of the tray, and then stick it in the front so it stands upright, and it would display your to-do list in an analog format. So that was probably the second thing. And then from there, I've done lots of different EDC trays and different household items. And now my biggest thing I'm doing aside from the content is I somehow fell into this niche of making trays for people who have really expensive supercars and want to display their keys in an elegant way.
Do you approach things thinking, what would I want? Or is it more, what would a customer want? And has that changed over time?
So yeah, it was originally what I want and things I wanted. So I wanted a general magnet or keychain that had this nostalgic style to me, and I started there. And then now where I'm at with 6 years under my belt, it's what can I make that's going to solve a problem for someone else? I don't necessarily have to have the problem. I'll do my research and find out what people want, whether it's something they just want because they enjoy it or something that solves a problem. I tackle things that way now because if you just make stuff you want, you're going to pigeonhole yourself pretty quickly.
So how do you do that? How do you go from designing things that you want? That's easy, right? You've got an idea in your head. You understand the context of it. You know how that magnet is supposed to look because you played those games and you really like them, right?
Yep.
But researching to try to figure out what might be popular, how does that work? How do you do that?
So for me, it's a mix of using some of the analytics tools I use for Etsy. Google Trends is a great place to go. Just kind of being on social media and seeing what people are doing, what's popular has been a big part. And now with the way technology is, ChatGPT has been a great help in finding what's trending because your brain can't be everywhere at once and you can't think of everything at once. And using an AI tool like that definitely helps you expand your eyes on what might be popular.
Hmm. Yeah. And your brand is, crafted with machines. I guess that's one
Hmm.
brand, right? You said, I
Yeah,
think you have a
absolutely.
couple different ones.
Yep.
So crafted with machines, obviously, you're selling the idea that you're using CNC machines and 3D printers and stuff like that. That's a
Yeah.
selling point for your customers in that brand, right?
Hmm. Yeah, so crafted machines is kind of like where I focus on the content and the education side of my expertise. So, with machines is content education surrounding digital fabrication tools and related things. Then on the product side, I have a brand called Pine and Print, and that's where I sell all the cool products that I make, and that's kind of like where I funnel everything that isn't 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 directly content related and is more on the product side. I funnel everything over to that brand.
Are the things that seem more handmade, more do they sell better on Etsy?
It seems that way. So
Yeah.
nothing I do is technically handmade. I mean, my hands touch it from one process to another, but it's all manufactured with digital fabrication tools. Um, I think what makes it sell better on Etsy is the fact that it's unique and something that can't be got at a big box store. For example, those key fob trays I'm making now. They're not. That's not something you can go to a even a high end boutique and get. It's something that you have to have custom made for your use case, and pretty much all of them are a little bit different from one customer to the next. And I think that's been a big selling point. I've gotten a lot more message requests through Etsy on people asking for custom orders than I used to before I started doing like more high end, almost semi furniture like pieces. So like a tray is something that sits on a piece of furniture to display your whatever. And I feel like that has elevated the desire for what I do when I kind of moved into that world. I found that selling to a higher end clientele has definitely helped level up that side of the game.
Yeah, sure. Especially when you're still doing it all yourself. You know,
Yeah,
the more high end, I mean, it's more money for the time, right?
it's hard to do volume when you're by yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. And you know, this is a good segue into why you use Fusion, but I would imagine if you're offering customizable products, um, it's kind of a slam dunk, right? If you're using
For sure.
the parametric settings and you've got your manufacturing setups and your jigs and all that stuff ready to go, it's much easier to offer something that is customized, right?
Absolutely. It's like if you think to traditional manufacturing, there's a whole tooling setup process that goes into something like this where I can, with 3D printing and CNC and laser, I can tool up without really changing my shop at all. So I'm able to offer those more custom items without making the price tag astronomical because
Yeah.
there's no crazy tooling setup.
And then you're also able to offer it in a timely fashion, right? Like you're
Exactly.
using
Yeah.
digital fabrication for everything. You don't have to have a huge lead time that
Yeah.
somebody else with maybe a competitive product on the same platform would be offering, right?
Yeah, I can like some of these, and I usually will give myself more lead time than I even need, just because it's good to or under promise and over deliver on these things. But yeah, I can turn around some of these products in a couple days.
You're making products that already exist, right? I mean, there's nothing
Mhm.
new about you know, a tray for your pocket change and your wallet and
Yeah.
you know earphones and so on. Um, how have you made that something that people want to buy from you, right? Is it the style? Is it, you know, what are some unique features you've brought to it?
So I think it's a little bit of the style. So some of them I do like a topo map pattern on them, which seems to go really well with like the whole like knife and EDC scene. I think a big part of the Etsy game is having a better photo than the next guy
Ah,
because you got to get them in the door. You can't sell something if they don't enter your listing. So I found by having, I'll do research and I don't even care what the product price is or what the product exactly is of the competitor. I want to see how it's photographed and how I can make that my photograph more appealing than their photograph.
wow.
And then from there, it's all about SEO and keywording so that when people type for something or something close, your product comes up and then your image is appealing enough that they click into your listing.
How have you developed that style and where did it come from? Are there any like you know, designers you were inspired by or, you know, product lines or like maybe a period of product design, anything like that?
So a lot of my stuff is inspired just by like very curvy, flowy lines and so I designed this little wall mountable drawer system that is kind of like donut shaped, so you can put an extension cord over it, but then it has these little drawers, so you can throw little odds and ends in it, and that's got a very like modern, roundish look to it. And I'm not sure where that came from, but that's always been like a look I like. I guess there's some throwback to the 80s and whatnot with some of that like spaceshipy looking feel to it, but trying to think off the top of my head some designers that I'm inspired by, but there's just so many, and it's a lot of my inspiration just comes from the people around me and the people in the maker community.
Sure.
Just like kind of subconsciously, just being inspired by all the people that I look up to.
Yeah. And one of those people is another guy that was on the podcast in December, DIY Dave,
Yeah, Dave's
who
great.
seems to be sort of like the he's become kind of the connector of this whole community. It's everybody knows him. And you were a human power generator for some project of his. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, that was funny. I was with Dave last summer and I stayed at his place We went to a retro gaming convention in on Long Island, and then on our way back, we're like, we should do a reel together. And he's like, yeah. And then we get back, I see his Peloton bike there. I'm like, what if we pretend like I'm powering your 3D printers with your Peloton? And so we found these alligator clip wires, and then we ran the cord over behind the 3D printer, and then we did this whole like shtick where I'm cranking, and he's like, dude, this print's only got 20 hours left to go. Keep going.
Love it.
Hey guys, this is the world's first human-powered 3D print. Check it out, got it hooked up here to my buddy Patrick. Patrick, how we doing?
How long is this print supposed to take?
I think 20 hours.
Yeah,
So that was when we get together, we come up with silly ideas, and Peter from Petrie's workshop, him and Dave and I get together quite a bit, and we're always coming up with silly ideas.
yeah. Are you guys located close by?
Yeah, Dave's like 2.5 hours from me. Pete's like an hour and a half from me.
Okay.
So I'm like 30 minutes south of Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
You're probably hearing the Office theme song in your head.
I
right
am.
now.
Yeah. And instantly. Yeah.
That's always what immediately comes to people's mind when I mention that. Yeah, the cost of living here is great.
Yeah.
It's where I'm at is semi-rural,
Uh-huh.
so
Nice.
I'm in a small house on an acre of land. So
Yeah.
I've got a detached garage where all the CNC and wood shop equipment are. Then in the space I'm sitting in now is the basement of our house, and I fitted it out as like my office slash 3D printing space,
Nice.
and
Why
it's
aren't
where
your
I keep
3D printers in the wood shop, Patrick?
because I want them to last more than 6 months.
I made that mistake in my the last place we lived. I just
Yeah,
didn't have anywhere else to put them, so I'm like,
killed
oh,
them.
I guess I'll just clean this thing more often. And it's like,
Then you never
it's
cleaned it,
oh my
and it
god,
died.
it sounds like it's 20 years old now. I got to take the whole thing apart and start over.
Yeah, so before I fitted out our garage to be my wood shop, my CNC and my laser were both in this basement on the other side of this wall. And my wife every week she'd be like, "Why is there so much dust upstairs?" I'm like, it's probably the CNC and the laser." I've since moved that outside, and life is a lot better here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's amazing how like even something like a laser creates dust and you don't realize it.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, the like I said, my shop is split between my basement and my garage, and I've always had like dreams of like renting commercial space, but I don't right now I don't see the need for it with what I'm doing content wise and the production I'm doing product wise. I'm doing fine. If anything, I would put like a small pole building on my property rather than go rent commercial space.
Yeah.
And even though the cost of living is low here and commercial space is nowhere near as expensive as it would be like in New Jersey or New York, still it just doesn't make sense to me to have to go into an office every day rather than just getting up and coming down here and working when I want.
Yeah. Why further complicate things and spend more money, right?
Exactly.
There's no doubt there's a lot of kids that are interested in having the kind of profession that you've got. A lot of kids have access to 3D printers now, whether that's in their school or just the fact that they're affordable. Kids are playing Minecraft. Like my 6-year-old loves it, and I can see his juices, his creative juices flowing through that, Legos and so on. But what advice do you have for people that maybe themselves are like parents, right? That themselves aren't necessarily handy, or kids that, don't really know how to get started. How would you recommend kids get into this stuff?
A couple things. First of all, I would say find some creators on YouTube or Instagram. Probably YouTube's probably a little bit more friendly for younger kids. Find some creators that resonate with what the kids want to do from a discipline, whether that's 3D printing or 3D modeling or woodworking, any of that stuff. There's so many creators out there putting out free content that can, at the very least, get their minds going and thinking about things they want to create. There's so many parts of STEM out there that are being represented on the internet by people who are just absolutely passionate about these things. So I'd say that's a good start. For example, and look at find the resources that are out there. So, for example, if kids want to get into 3D modeling, there's the student version of Fusion, correct? That is available for these kids to use, and there's so many resources on learning Fusion. I have no formal education in Fusion, but I consider myself an advanced user, and that's just from consuming content of other people who have learned these skills before me. And I think that goes for kids too. There's so many resources to learn from people who have walked this path before them that I think that's a great start. It was 20 years ago you had to go to school to learn 3D modeling and engineering, and sure you can't like put an engineering stamp on technical documents if you don't have an engineering degree, but you can still engineer the heck out of something, and it could still be every bit as good as somebody who has a formal education if you are passionate about it. So yeah, I would say the biggest thing is just consume content around the thing that you're interested in, and see if it's something that you're still interested in. And there's chances are there's something in the design, engineering, STEM fields that is going to be interesting to pretty much any kid. So I would say just consume free content and then go from there.
Nice. Good advice. Cool. All right. Let's if you're up for it, let's move on to a shop tour.
All right, let me switch my camera. Ooh, not that one. There we go. All right, so over here I have this French cleat wall that I put up a long time ago so I can endlessly reconfigure the art and whatnot, and I'm kind of in
Do you like it?
I do. Aesthetically, sometimes it drives me nuts because it's not as clean as I'd like it to be if it was just the gray wall. But being able to move stuff around without putting more holes in the wall is super nice.
Yeah. I'm considering one in my shop. That's why I ask.
Yeah, I would. It's definitely great for a shop. I had more of it in here, but I decided to get rid of it in exchange for this hex wall that I built over here.
That looks
So
cool.
these are all laser cut hexagons out of Baltic birch and walnut plywood.
Yeah.
And I'm actually missing a couple pieces up there I need to finish up, but you know how it goes. You get 99% done on a project, then you move on to the next thing.
Yep.
So this is where I've got my two main 3D printers. I've got the Bamboo X1 Carbon and then the A1 here.
Nice.
Filament dryer. I've got a small laser here. I've got the X-Tool F1. That's just when I'm doing like small stuff and prototyping. Over here, I've just got a bench. This office space is kind of a hodgepodge of stuff I've randomly built over the years, and I'm slowly updating things to more aesthetically pleasing stuff. So I built this like when I really first started woodworking, and it's all construction lumber, but it serves a purpose and
Does
it
the
does
job.
the job. Yeah, and I actually just repainted this wall because I'm putting one of those honeycomb 3D printable storage walls up.
Oh, cool.
I had it up there, but I decided to reconfigure it, so I had to paint, and that's going to go up today, I think.
Nice.
Over here, we got another workbench, another 3D printer, and then all my traditional printing stuff is down here. Here is a tour of my garage shop. This is where all the messy stuff happens, all the woodworking and laser cutting and stuff like that. So first, we've got my 25-year-old joiner. We've got the CNC setup, which is a Onefinity woodworker, and I've done a little customization. So I designed this little enclosure for the screen and all my accessories. I created this dust boom, designed that in Fusion. I've got my laser here. This thing definitely earns its keep. I've got a little adjunct office area here. Got my bandsaw, router table, got the table saw, little sanding cart I designed, the wood stove that keeps me toasty in the winter, and a hot mess of scraps that need to be organized and eventually make their way up there. I'm going to build a little loft there. And then sander, and other toolbox. So yeah, that is my outdoor shop in a nutshell.
Cool, man. Well, thanks for the tour. At this point, we usually get into the fun question at the end. So the question is, the scenario is it's the zombie. The scenario is that it's the zombie apocalypse and you don't have your shop anymore. You have to start over. Assume you've got power and, solar panels or something like that. But you put yourself at great personal risk to procure anything you need for your shop. So what do you try to get first to rebuild it?
So I'm starting with nothing, right?
Yeah.
All right. I'm heading out fighting zombies to get myself a 3D printer and a computer with Fusion loaded on it.
Okay.
Because
3D printer.
I know if I can design stuff and 3D print it, I can do a lot of damage in regard to making useful things with a 3D printer.
Yeah. Yeah, you can make tools.
Yeah, absolutely. That's probably the thing I could generate the most useful items with.
Yeah. And of course our servers will still be up. Like you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's a given. Don't worry about that. Right on. Patrick, thanks for coming, man. This is a great conversation. And I want everybody to know that you have a lot of really cool stuff for sale. That your Instagram has some really great information on it. You're super generous with with your process and kind of explaining to people how all this stuff is done. There's so much good stuff out there that you're putting out. So can you tell us where we can find you?
Yeah, there's quite there's a couple links. So first of all, you can find me on Instagram, Crafted with Machines. If you want to buy things that I make, you can either look up Pine and Print Ltd on Etsy or go to pineandprint.com. I have a Shopify store there. And then lastly, the content side of my business, the Crafted with Machines, is it's supported mostly by Patreon. So if anybody wants to head to Patreon, I'm Crafted with Machines on Patreon, and I feel like I'm providing a lot of value over there in form of digital files for people to use, Fusion files that people can load in my product and actually see how they're built digitally. Education. There's a lot of cool stuff over there. So if you're a maker and you want to learn more or learn how to become a maker that makes money, I think that's a good resource.
Excellent. Thanks, man. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Thanks for having me.
Right on. Hey, everyone. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay up to date with all things ShopTalk. If you're ready to try Fusion for yourself, find the link in our description.